Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are at. Welcome back to another Her Bold Voice LinkedIn live show. And I can actually call my guest today not only a colleague, but a friend from over the years. And her and I live in the same state. Unfortunately, we're not in each other's backyards. We're about 2 hours away, but that doesn't stop us. But anyways, as you all are logging in and you do put in comments and stuff, if we don't address your comments, Lisa and I are not ignoring you. I will swing back around afterwards and make some comments. I really want to focus in on Lisa and the show and making sure all the viewers get everything that they need from it. And just in case you don't know who I am, but you should know who I am if you're on my LinkedIn Live and on my page, right? I'm Kim Boudreaux Smith, leadership communication speaker coach. And that's enough. I want to thank all of you in advance for joining us. And that is enough about me because I want to jump in because time is of essence for all of you to meet Lisa Tarkington, a leadership consultant and associate certified coach through ICF, is also the visionary force behind Self Love Beauty. I love her business. A 501c3 nonprofit organization focused on confidence, one of my favorite C words, and well-being. She's also the host of the Confident podcast and has degrees in social impact, communications, and positive psychology. Her personal struggle with confidence led her to realize a universal need for support in leadership, confidence, and well-being. Lisa, welcome today. And I'm going to say, and we'll come around and you can shout out to where you want everyone to go. But everybody listening, track down the Confident podcast. It's a fantastic. I enjoy the podcast. I don't get to listen to it all the time, but boy, when I'm logging in and tuning in and listening, I love it. I love it. It's a great podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking everything about confidence. So it's one of my favorite. I think it is my favorite C word.
yeah. I get that's one of my favorites. Well, confident, calm, clarity, compassion.
Connection, totally, all of those things. Yeah,
exactly. We can even get a little edgy here instead of KIND. We can do kind with the C, and we can get really tricky here if you really want to. Hey, it's my show. You're my guest. We can do whatever we want here.
Amen.
But let's jump in. Tell me about that, because I met you shortly after, I do believe, the launch of your business, and this was a few years ago. What it was that confidence piece within yourself that led you to this business?
So great question. I think it actually started with me not having confidence, if I'm being honest. I think it really started with me years of kind of saying to myself, just fake it till you make it. And I don't like that. I'm really big on, like, I think it's true to a degree, right? But I think I was not truly believing in myself, right? Like I was putting on the external face, but internally I was struggling. And so what I really wanted for people, and kind of what led me to it, was wanting other people to finally have confidence. So I did a lot of work on myself, to be honest with you. I think launching it took years of little things adding up to get to it. I did not wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. It was a lot of little moments to get there. Reflecting back, it's like kind of one of those like black holes a little bit where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I made it. But like, it was all these little things that got me there.
I believe, oh my gosh, you said so much there. First of all, I'm going to swing back around to the fake it until you make it is my least favorite thing in the whole wide world. Number one, I'll come back around to that. But, it's not a one and done with our self-esteem, our confidence, our worth. It's not a one and done. There's steps. Some days the steps are ginormous and we have these major aha moments and like our confidence just soars. And some days it's little teeny tiny pieces that lead to the bigger things as well. And I love what you said, working on myself.
Yeah.
Ladies, and even gentlemen out there listening, because there's always a space for a few good men, especially in my business, even though I market to women. But we have to work on ourselves, and please do something that works for you. Don't just go work on yourself because everyone says to meditate or everyone says to to journal or whatever. Find your groove, find your thing, and don't go into right or wrong and I got to do it this way or that. Do you, babe, do you find that. So tell me about some of the things that you do, the steps that you take daily to massage that confidence, and excuse my word of massaging that confidence, but growing that, keeping that confidence strong so that in turn you can serve your clients.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that over the years is I really had to start focusing on my strengths versus all of my weaknesses.
Mm.
So I think one of the things that I came from the corporate world, I had to stretch my skill sets in a lot of different ways. I think it's very important to learn all the skills, right? Like, I am not saying to anybody, like, if you want to learn something, don't. I'm saying, though, what I had to learn was what kind of lit me up. Like, what was the activity or the skill that I was like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. And then I had to look at also the activities that I was like, wow, I bet if I just had someone else do this, they do it in half the time and I wouldn't be so frustrated. So I had to start there with looking at my strengths and really being like, what is the things that I want to be known for? What are the things that bring me alive? And then working on those every day. It's funny, even at the young age, I was just talking to my parents about this. We were just laughing because I was always the leader, right? Like, I was always the leader. And then I went through my phases of like trying to find myself. And now that I'm like really into a leadership role again, it's intriguing how I have to massage my confidence in different ways, right? Like my confidence as a leader, my confidence in my strengths, and then making sure that I make time for that because some days I don't even get to do my things all day long, right? Like I'm doing a lot of business stuff. And so it's really just reminding myself, like, what are my strengths and how do I utilize mine and other people's to really grow myself, right? I think it's so easy. Like studies show that we spend 80% of the time focused on our weaknesses and 20% on our strengths. Same thing with confidence, right? We're probably spending time on all the things we're not confident in without looking internally and be like, wow, I could walk into that boardroom, raise my hand and say what I want. Like, I'm really smart at XYZ to own it.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of us, we all need to do that just as a general human race. It's just a human, as beings, we need to take a look at where, what brings us joy. And I'm not just talking about in business. I mean, like, okay, what are some hobbies? Like, what do you love to do? Like, where, it's like, what gets you going? What really gets you going? And then the stuff that drains you. Now, I'm going to say this, things that do drain you, especially as a business owner. If you are just in startup mode, and I mean startup mode, I don't mean 5 minutes ago. I mean, maybe the first 2 years, we are wearing several of the hats. And I'm a big proponent. I like to understand a lot of the stuff I don't want to be an expert of everything in my business. Like, I want to be an expert at my CRM. I think, oh my God, I think I would go bald if I became an expert at my CRM, but I know just enough to get me through it. So I don't always have to scream for my assistant and say, hey, can you fix this? Because it takes her 5 seconds. It would take me 5 hours, but not having to be an expert at every single thing in our business, in our lives. I mean, I don't know about you, Lisa, but boy, if I get a plumbing issue in my house, I'm certainly not going to go fix. I'm going to call a plumber, so it's applying that in the same way in our businesses and learning how to delegate when that platform is not perfect or 100% right. It's when we come out of that comfort zone, start feeling the goobly gobblies, all those sensations. That's when it's like, well, maybe I do need to bring on a virtual assistant. And then maybe it's only an hour a week or 2 hours a week, but starting there and not having to be an expert at everything. Discover strengths. I love what you said. Discover the strengths, discover what you're good at. And I'm going to tell you what, you want to see some confidence, go.
Amen. Well, and I think the other thing that we're also seeing too is like, you got to get your ego out of the way. So like, I think when people, like what you said with the expert thing, I think when people really play into their strengths and what they're an expert in, and they're not like, well, I can do this, or I can do this, and I can do this. It's like, no, be in your zone of genius. Like if all of us were in our zone of genius, like so many more people would be confident, and then we would trust other people to be in that space. But when we get an ego in the way, we actually hurt ourselves more because we think we're good at everything. And I I'm straight up like, I've had my ego in the way. Like, I can just do that. I just got it. But like, it is so draining when you keep telling yourself that versus being like, you know what? You're just the expert there. Like, I'll support you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got this. I'm going to be confident in my way. And then it's really cool when you are confident in your area, because then that's what people call you about. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and then people like start to see you in that way, but you have to see yourself in that way first.
Yes. That's interesting. My husband said to me one time, and he still will say this periodically. He goes, something, Kim? He goes, you see so much more in other people, especially your clients, which is part of the coaching we do. We
Yep.
see the blind spots and stuff.
Yep.
He goes, but you have such deep of belief in other people, they don't even see it. And when he says it to me, it just makes, check back in on the boundaries, check back in on the boundaries, because not everybody is over here. It's, being able to meet people here and then bring them forward little
Yep.
steps at a time. And by the way, it's an everyday, work of art, it's a practice, what we do for ourselves. It is a huge practice. I want to come back around to that, fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want you to know, I just heard that in a facilitation a couple of months ago in an organization I was in. A couple of these women are like, no, it's okay. I'm going to fake it until I make it. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, time out. Explain to me, how is that okay? And first of all, I want everybody listening, including you, Lisa. Look at Just Do It works for Nike, and those are shoes. We are human beings. Just Do It doesn't work for everybody, but let's talk about this fake it until you make it, putting on that pretty old face, putting on that smile, and you've got all this chaotic stuff going on inside. And we could just show up and just fake this stuff until we freaking fill in the blank, make it, whatever that is. Let's talk about that. How was that for you?
So I think for a while, it was a quote that everybody said, right? But I actually don't even know if people actually know what it means. Right. So like, fake it till you make it could mean a variety of different things to other people. So I think when people say it, I have to ask them, like, well, what does that even mean to you? Because I think that just like a lot of words in society, they've gotten overshadowed by maybe what they actually mean. But for me, confidence is all believing in your skills and your abilities. So why would you fake that? Why would you fake your belief in your own skills and abilities? And so for me, when I first thought like, okay, maybe I have to do that, I had to do a big reflection of myself of like, no, I am the expert at this stuff. And if I'm not, I'm going to learn how to do it along the way. And so I think for me, having that be realistic with myself. It's funny looking back 10 years ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what I know now. But I was smart then, right? I was confident then about certain things. I just learned more over the years. So when I hear that from people, I don't think that they mean it sometimes in a bad notion. I think that they don't even know what it means, right? Because they know where they want to go. So they're like, I'll just figure it out as I go. But it's not about faking it. It's saying, I'm going to figure it out. That's the difference, right? Like, I might not have all the answers. I'm going to find the answers. I'm going to be vulnerable about it. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to grow in my skills and my abilities versus lying about it. Because I think that that's when more of the imposter syndrome starts to play over time, because you didn't do the work up front.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when we're in that fake it until we make it mode, which I was a fake it until you make it girl, didn't even know what fake it until you make it was, and imposter syndrome back in my corporate days. I was the only woman sitting in rooms. Oh my God, these men that were chewing me up and spit me out alive. That fake it, first of all, we are attracting fake, and we are putting those lies and that fakeness out there. So I mean, what is that going to actually do for everybody that is listening? Question yourself if you are in a fake it until you make it mode. And this organization that I was working with, one of the ladies said, I'm the new kid on the block in the position, and I'm going to just sit back and fake this until I can make it. And it's like, that's not what they've hired you to do. So explain to me. I want to hear more how that is helping, especially every single woman out there in organizations, the gender lack of, the equity gap, between genders. It's like, and then we're going to show up and fake it until we make it. I want you all to think, we put those lies out. We put the fakeness out. This is what we attract. This is what brings into our realm. And it's like Lisa said, like you said, Lisa, is, now that imposter's coming in. So then we got to go get another degree, because we've got this fill in the blank to fill in. So we go get another degree, another certification. Oh, I'll speak up when I've been here for God only knows how long or whatever. It really, first of all, you want to talk about olive oil and Popeye, olive oil with the organic spinach and Popeye's arms getting big with the inner critic. That's what we're doing. We're feeding it, making it bigger. So when was your big aha, bold moment? And it could be years ago, could have been yesterday, it could have been a couple months ago, that really just took you, if you were traveling right, you turned left.
I would say, honestly, the year of COVID. So I decided to go 100% into my nonprofit January 2020. And then everything changed in March. And I remember the conversation so perfectly. Like, I had been doing this for years while working my corporate job. I left my corporate job, took a part-time job to pay my bills while I was building my nonprofit. So I think one of the biggest things that I like to remind people is, like, we all start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had in that time, I had $25 in my bank account. And so I'm very real about that, of like, it was not like it was easy, right? Like, during COVID, I had to sell like my second spare bedroom, like furniture, to like pay my bills. Like, it wasn't like I just like woke up and was like, I'm, but all of those moments, I think, took to a conversation I had with my mom in April of 2020. And I said, I don't know if I can do this, because I had stability for all those years, right? And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to. And then I think I had some tears in there a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And there was this moment of just like, and nothing's going to stop me from helping people make an impact. And I'm so glad that I like fully invested. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still hard days. There's still days where I lack my confidence sometimes in myself, but I think that was a really pivotal moment for me, of like, this is my life and I have to choose what's best for what, living out my purpose. I'm really big on living out your purpose and about utilizing your strengths. And that's what I needed to do. So I'd say like that was my pivotal moment of change in my life.
That is that's a true entrepreneurial moment, when you've got $25 in the bank.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, you're looking in your home or your apartment or whatever, going, who needs that stuff in that guest bedroom, and sell that off to bring money? And and that's a huge priceless position and comment that you made, because you're right. Because of our social media putting out there what is not realistic, a lot of entrepreneurs, people that are stepping away from, whether it's golden, beautiful handcuffs, which that security is also false evidence, because you never know in an organization. There's really is no security in life, each day at a time, of course, but I mean, so many people are like, I'm going to go step away and start a business. And it's like, oh, okay. But, make sure you've got some things there patting you as you're going through that transition and into growth, because owning a business doesn't happen overnight. And I'm going to tell you, everybody listening, talk about a hit and play on confidence. Oh my gosh. One day up, the next day down, the next day we're halfway up, and then we go up again. And then before you know it, we're back underneath the table, So that is that might have to be part of a TED talk there, Lisa, that $25 in the bank. That's a catcher.
Real. Yeah.
That is a catcher. That really is a catcher. So what do you say when you have clients? And I'm going to, this is an assumption, but I don't think I'm too far off base. Is when clients are coming to you and I hear this, I don't have confidence. And I say, BS, we all have confidence. We just want to amplify and strengthen. What do you say to clients when they come to you? I really don't have confidence. It's really tanked, and I'm in a fake it until I make it mode.
A lot of times where I even say, like, I talk is like, we do a lot of questions back and forth of like, well, what aren't you confident in? What does even that mean to you? Because a lot of people don't even know the definition of confidence. A lot of people define it with their self-worth and that self-esteem, like, and so really understanding like where they're coming from with their confidence. And then we kind of dive in from that conversation, right? So I think a lot of people use it in a broad term, but like I could tell you right now what I'm confident in, and I can tell you right now what I'm not confident in. And also it helps people understand like, okay, I'm not confident there, but like, do I need to be? Right. And that's helped me a lot be like, well, I need to be confident in this area to do X, Y, Z. But like over here, well, actually, this person that I'm working with is confident there. So do I need to be the expert there? And if I want to be, that's a different story, right? But like, do I need to be? Because I think we have to be confident in everything, but that's not realistic. And I would never ask that of someone. So I think that's one area. The other piece I always ask people is what are the moments that have made you feel like you don't have confidence? So maybe it is the boardroom. Maybe it's that you're hanging out with people that aren't supportive. Maybe you like, what does that look like in your life? And then the other question I say is, when did you feel confident last time? And then we talk about what was that experience? What were you wearing? Where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with? What were you talking about? Right. And then that helps you see like what you need to be doing in order to make changes. But then I always tell people like I can guide you as much as possible as a coach. But at the end of the day, like self-confidence has self in front of it because you have to take ownership for what you really want in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very well said. I think life is complete after that one. I mean, that was beautifully, beautifully said. And I love that. I mean, that was an eye opener for me and just a really check in reminder that, there is self in front of confidence. There's self in front of esteem, which by the way, I do believe it's the Latin meaning of esteem is an estimate of ourselves. And so there's a self estimate here, but there's self in front of everything. And we do have choices, and surround yourself with people who have done it, have been there, are doing it, hiccup, slip up, and be around other like-minded women, men, just human beings, so that the confidence is not getting jarred at and chipped away like an iceberg, chip away when we're trying to build it up. Lisa, when was the last time? And let me clarify. The IC, the inner critic, I call her the hag in the attic. I think you've heard me say that a few times. I know a lot of people. I refer to her as the hag in the attic, and she is a hag in the attic. And but when was the last time your inner critic showed up?
So my inner critic loves to come probably monthly. She shows up. She's allowed to stay sometimes for 24 hours, sometimes for 12. When I'm having really hard days, some days she's allowed for 5 minutes. And because, so I give my sign. So the longest I'm allowed is 24 hours when she does show up, just because some days are really hard. Right. And it's like, I want to bounce back as fast as possible. But hey, if I can at least do it in 24 hours, like at least it's not lagging on day to day. So that is like my thing. Other days it's like 5 minutes. Because sometimes your day is just packed and you're like, you know what? I got crap to do. She needs to take a back seat. I think that last week it probably came up of like, I run a nonprofit, right? Like, there's all of these rules and responsibilities and politics and all of the things that come with running a business. For profit, nonprofit, it doesn't really matter. It also doesn't matter if you're not running a business. Everybody, I used to work in corporate. Like I totally get all of these things too. And I think the inner critic said to me, are you sure you can actually do this? And I remember that. And I'm a person that when the inner critic comes out, sometimes I can silence her myself. But I have a support system that I've built and really, really invested in to really help me when those moments come up, because the inner critic is on me, right? Like I need to have those conversations, but sometimes I need to talk through why the inner critic is there. So I never ask anybody to solve my problem. I just need to talk it out loud. Like, hey, this is showing up for me. I just need to talk about it. You actually don't even have to say anything, right? I just need to listen. So she showed up last week, right? She's hung around some days longer than I want her to, but at the same time, like it's learning to bounce back quicker when you have the tools in place. And you also know that, like, I like to say this. So my inner critic really comes out when I have spotlight effect issues, when I think everybody's spotlighting on me. And guess what, Kim? No one cares. Right? Like, and I mean that in the nicest way. Like, people care about you, but they're not thinking about you when they're making dinner with their family. They've moved on. And I think my inner critic comes out the most when I have the spotlight effect issues.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting how our inner critic, that I see that little hag likes to pick specific times. And, I say this in podcast interviews. I say this all the time. Look, this is not a one and done, and we can't silence her. Don't try. I don't have children, and I believe, Lisa, you don't have children. We got fur babies instead. But try and out scream a teenager. It's impossible. And that's what you are doing to the inner critic when we're trying to silence her. I mean, I've heard so many people, I'm going to throw her out and kick her to the curb. Well, I'm going to tell you something. She comes back 20 times bigger on steroids. So you do not want to be doing that. We need to tame and make nice. And
Yeah.
just know she's got like a default button, just like our phones do, our computers do, and this is not a one and done. It's just learning, like you said, maybe 24 hours or maybe an hour, but not 24 years of that.
Yes. And I'll share too, Kim, I think the one thing and this is women specific, not men specific, but around our menstrual cycles,
yes,
they seem to come out a lot stronger. And so that is just something too for women to be conscious of. And like, we actually talk about that in my household of like, okay, it's coming on pretty strong. What's going on with my body just in general? So I also think it's important, like we teach taking care of yourself in different ways. It's also understanding what your body is going through, because those things for me come out a little bit more during that time.
Yeah, well, and we're going through hormonal changes, because, once you get past that and you're going, pre, during, and post menopause, then there's a whole other song and dance with that inner critic. And a lot of that inner critic, that is coming from societal issues. One of my things where I get myself in trouble for shopping is on Instagram, and here these ads, for an example, clothing for women over 50. You know what I feel like saying? F you. Or hairstyles for women over 50. Are you kidding me? Or certain makeup for women over 50. It's like, no, it doesn't matter if you're over 50, under 50, over 60, or whatever. You do what's going to work and right for you. So a lot of those societal message also plays. And it's, again, olive oil, Popeye, organic spinach feeds that inner critic and that lack of self-worth. I mean, it's like, do we change as we go through decades in our years? Yeah, we do. Bodies change, hair, it changes.
Yes.
That doesn't mean we have to feed that inner critic.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but to acknowledge it and be aware, like you are. I absolutely. I love it. Okay, we're about a half hour in. Everyone needs to know, Lisa, where they need to be in touch with you.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to get in touch with me, my personal website for coaching, speaking, and just facilitating in general is lisatarkington.com. So you can visit my website, follow me on all social media, Lisa Tarkington. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then my podcast is on the Confident Podcast, but also my nonprofit. We are called Self Love Beauty, and we have a website as well, selflovebeauty.com. We are going through some transitions in the next couple of weeks, but luckily everything that we have will just transition right over to those items too. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, if anybody is looking to connect, speaking, coaching, that's my jam. That's my expertise area. So I'd love to connect with people.
Yeah. And make sure you're connected with Lisa on LinkedIn as well. And because I know you put your podcast links out there, because when you were just on your honeymoon, I'm like, wait a minute, she did all these podcasts and scheduled them? Because I think she's on her honeymoon. So, I was seeing all that. It made me stop and think for a moment, because I knew that you were traveling, but you can find the links to your podcast on LinkedIn, and also over on your website as well. Please jump in. Some of those podcasts, some of those issues I absolutely love. And my favorite time for me personally to listen to podcasts is when I'm on my elliptical, and before you know it, 30 minutes is gone. And then I'm like, well, that was easy 30 minutes. Let's do another 15, come on. So yes, I highly recommend everyone to hop on over and listen to the podcast.
Well, and also like the podcast, to be honest, all the conversations we have are actually from people reaching out. So like I just did one on that will launch soon on ego. That was all because someone was coming to me about their purpose and their ego was in the way.
Mm.
And like all of these things. So like they're real life examples. And then I just share my own story with it because everything, it's funny when people come to you about things and you mirror them and you're like, I laugh sometimes like, oh, that was actually given to me for a reason, or you listen to a podcast, Kim, and you're like, oh, yep, needed to hear that today. So it's like the more that you can focus
Yep.
on growth in these areas, you know, and one of the things that someone said to me the other day is like, I don't have time for personal development. And I've been there, right? I'm still there some days where I'm just like, oh, I have all of these things to do. So that's when you can tell that you're getting burnt out,
Yes.
is
Yep.
when you don't have time to do those things.
I agree. That's a big, huge, significant, oh my gosh, red flag. Don't even slow down. Don't even pause. Stop.
Yeah.
When you are saying, I don't have time for personal development, burnout. And burnout, by the way, everybody listening, burnout is real.
Yeah.
Situational depression, which I had back in October and going into November, is hugely real. You know, and also too, the other thing that you were saying, you know, when your inner critic is kicking up, you know who to go to, because it's not that you're puking and projecting your stuff, is you're a vocal processor. You have to I'm the same way. I have to process. Don't try to solve me. Don't try to change me. Just to hear me so I can hear myself, you know, and just hold the space. So all those things are real. I think one of the things is what a lot of women like to do is, no, I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to be alone and I'm going to handle it on my own. And that's another dangerous, slippery slope to get down because, you know, I mean, when one of us is going through something and we do share it, whether it's, you know, once we're past it and it's part of a story, it helps other people as well.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I also know that like, the more that I'm open and honest about it, it opens up other people to know that they can come to me for those things too. And I actually ran into someone the other day and she thought she just needed to go to the gym to like, she was just tired and like burnout. And we ran into each other at the gym. We just started talking and she texted me afterwards. She goes, I actually think I needed that more than the gym. I think I just needed to talk through things. And so it's like, when we're doing it in silence, it just, that inner critic's going to come out a little bit stronger. We're eventually probably going to resent people or we're going to blow up, you know? And I tell people this all the time. No one has it all figured out, right? Like I talk to leaders all the time that have been here for 35 years, doing it for 40 years. And I'm like, can you give like, you know, I'm going through this. And they're like, I remember those days. They're like, wait, that happened to me last week too. And so I'm like, okay, so like, this is like, if I don't take care of myself now, this is where I'm going to be in 40 years dealing with XYZ still. And so it's just a reminder to people that like the people, you know, like I teach this stuff. I might be an expert in confidence, but I still have my days, right? I just have now the tools to get out of those situations faster than what I did in the past. You learn resilience. I just want to share one other thing with that, Kim. I get a lot of phone calls from parents about like, my daughter's going through this or my son's going through this. And one of the things that I think parents want to do so badly, and like who doesn't, we do not want to see other people suffer. Hands down, we do not want that. And I don't want that for the kids either. And I don't want that for the parents either. I think though that one of the things that we can really do is help and guide them and know that it's okay to fail. Because when I look back at my whole life, my parents were always there. They were very supportive, right? Like they always had my back, were there, but like I had to make the mistakes to get where I'm at. And I think we talk about this all the time, me and my dad, because he would say some things like, your choices. And I'd be like, what? And like, he didn't interfere. He made me go through them. And sometimes I'm like, why didn't you stop me? But I never would have grown had he continued to hold my hand. And also I had to learn expectations, right? Like if my dad and my mom would have just done it all for me, I never would have learned how to be a good friend. I never would have known what support system I need. I think it would have hurt me long term. And like, I don't want that for the next generation, even though all of us just want to hug them and make things better. We can still do that. We just have to watch how we're doing that.
With that, what came to my mind? Well, first of all, two things came to my mind when you said that, Lisa. What is the expression, win some, lose some? I believe in win some, learn some. Let's
Yes.
not lose some over here, but, learning, because when we are making mistakes, it just opens up doors of opportunities for growth and to, if, have opportunities, if it was to happen again, how would you show up, differently the next time? But the other thing was not only the win some, learn some, but have you ever been in a room with women and, you're in a sacred, intimate environments, and a woman becomes emotional and she begins to cry? What do the other women do? They want to run to her. They want to touch her. They want to hug her. They want to give her the Kleenex. And yes, of course we do, because we want to support. But what that can do sometimes when somebody is going through, like your father saw you, oh my gosh, my daughter Lisa's got to go through this. We're going to be there to hug her, but she's got to go learn this. It's the same thing with women when they are bubbling up and going through emotions. Is the best thing to do is step back, sit, breathe, and hold space for that woman. And then when the emotions are done, then give the hug and push the Kleenex towards, let the snots come down, let the tears come down. That's one of the things that reminded me, and it's like parenting, cutting those apron strings or holding the space to allow your children to make, to learn these life lessons, scrape up the knees. It's the same thing when you're in a group of women. Let them cry. We don't have to run over there and hug them and touch them, because that blocks it. It blocks it. And then women are not getting that out, because you and I are in a society of, we can't show our emotions because then we're weak or we're bitchy or we're this, or is it your time of the month? All that stuff that has been thrown onto us by society. So that's what reminded me. I mean, you have very good parents because they were supportive. And I'm sure, how hard was that? I'm not a parent, but how hard is it to watch children do things like that and to be able to allow them to do things like that?
Totally. And I think that that's actually something that I would say about leaders too, right? Is like, with changes that we're seeing in employment right now, the changes that we're just seeing in
Yeah.
general with all these companies, it's like you have to allow that space as well. Because I look at the leaders who had my back, right? Had my back, but like gave me the space to fail or just, take a few steps back. Oh man, that's where the lessons were taught. Right. And I look at those moments and I'm like, I had to own it. I had to like find a way to fix it. I couldn't look at my boss and be like, can you fix this for me? I had to be
Mm.
like, hey, I made a mistake. I need you to back me up while I fix it. And it was on me. And I think that that is also, when it comes to confidence, when you own your all of who you are, it really makes a difference long term of how you'll become more confident too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Makes those the all the stuff that goes on off in our heads, I'm fearful, I'm nervous, and get down into, I could be scared but yet excited, into the sensations into our bodies. We spend too much time up here in the head, which again feeds the inner critic. We go into stories blow up. It's a lot of that, and being able to come back down to the body, being confident and saying and asking for help, for God's sakes, no matter what the outcome is,
Yeah.
letting go of the outcome, but be making sure that you are stepping up and speaking up and asking for help. All right. Your self-care, my self-care, confident, all of this, Lisa. What 3 things would you like to leave the audience with today around, oh my God, the self-care? Self-care is like a big buzzword. No offense to everybody out there, but self-care is like a big buzzword. It's like, how can we do this without, I'm self-care. All right. And the confidence. What's 3 things? What 3 last things?
Yeah, so I would remind people when it comes to self-care, it looks different for everybody, but the
And I go,
biggest thing is no one's going to do it for you. So if you don't create the space for it and you don't actually go do the action, it's not going to happen. Employers can give you the space of shut your laptop at 5, don't work weekends, blah, 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 blah. But that's at the end of the day, like your choice, how you handle then your off time, right? So I love ownership, like own that you get to be in charge of your own self-care. And like, how cool is that? We complain all the time that, well, I have a boss that's telling me X, Y, Z. Well, guess what? Now self-care, you get to do yourself. So like own it, love it, and appreciate that you get to make that choice. I would say for confidence, I always tell people look at what your strengths are. How are you utilizing them? If you're underutilizing them, how can you use them more? How do you have that conversation with yourself? How do you have that conversation with your boss? Or how do you make changes in your life? Because the more people live into their strengths versus their weaknesses, they just like are so more vibrant, I would say. And then the third one is that you don't have to do it alone. You know, the biggest thing is like I hear from people all the time that are in the marketing world or tech world, like this isn't what they do every day. So come to the experts like me and Kim or other individuals who are in this space. Like I don't go and do my own accounting because I don't know how, right? So like that's the same thing with all like working with a coach or something. Like they're here to guide you and to help you, just like we outsource other things because we don't know how, so we need support. And so that's just something that like you have to be okay with asking for support. And I will tell you, I've had a coach for years and I always will. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. I agree with you. I've been working with a coach for the last 3 years when we started going into quarantine and my business was plummeting and I had to
Yep.
they call us out and they see the blind spots and they support us. They're there for us. And it just helps us keep elevating. And that doesn't mean in between we have our little moments, because trust, I personally have my moments. I do, but I'll take the moments as opposed to the weeks, the months, and the years, and all of that. Oh my gosh, Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was so great to chat about this stuff.
I know. Well, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. It really, truly is. And I mean, everybody listening, look, we have confidence. It's just the BS society that we allow to get in our way. And we have a choice. It's called self-confidence and, self-love and self-care. Just make sure you're doing it on your own. Just because everyone's meditating doesn't mean that's going to work for you, or find your groove of meditation or whatever that looks like. But definitely, please reach out and connect with Lisa. Let's jump in, listen to her podcast. They are very great podcasts. I love them. They're very, very good. And like I said, they get me through my elliptical in the morning. So, Lisa, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for having me.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Don't forget to leave some comments on the link here on the page, and I will swing back around and do as much answering as I possibly can. Get out there, make it a great day, claim that bold voice, and we'll see you right here, same time, same place next week.